financial crisis recovery.
Foreclosure, short sales, bankruptcy, credit card debt, job loss, depreciating home values, money management. Peace of mind when it comes to your finances seems completely out of reach under current conditions, but there is a way to achieve it. For the next 60 minutes, you're going to find out how to cover your assets. Cover your assets.
To try to accomplish something in terms of, building up your credit score or anything else we talk about financially on this show, all things financial. If you don't know the rules to the game, if you're running the wrong direction on the baseball diamond, it doesn't matter that you knocked it out of the park. So you got to know what you're doing. You got to have some notion of how things work. So first off, here it is. 35% of what makes up your credit score comes from whether you do or don't pay your bills on time, meaning 35% of what makes up a score is determined by bill payment history. Now, the point that I'll make about that is that only 35% comes from whether you do or don't pay your bills. On the other 2/3 that makes up this apparently all-important credit score that in today's world is dictating our lives to such great measure, it's almost inconceivable. Your credit score and your credit specifically has more impact, did you know this, on your insurance premiums for most people than your driving record. Your auto insurance can be more than double based on credit score, meaning the premiums can be more than double based on credit score. Do you know that your home insurance, your business liability, if you have to seek bonding to be able to bid on a project, let's say a large construction project, all of that is completely dependent and the credit score and the credit information has tremendous impact on that payment that you will make monthly for that insurance or those types of things. So it's pretty shocking the impact that it has, yet only 35% of what makes up your score comes from whether you do or don't pay your bills on time. Most people, I think, if you polled them on the street, would expect that 90% is coming from that, and they'd be absolutely wrong about that. So what is the next largest component that creates credit scoring? Well, this will be interesting. 30% of your credit score comes from balance ratios. This has to do with how much credit you've been offered as compared with how much you're using. So whether I have a $30,000 credit line or credit limit, or I have a $300 credit line or credit limit, the percentage of what I'm using is quite literally making up 30% of my credit score. So interesting thing, if you've fallen into a negative position in terms of your credit, you're trying to rebuild it, and the notion is, hey, well, those rotten, dirty, credit cards got me into trouble, and that's where I all went bad. So by goodness, my answer to that is that I'm going to operate on cash. I'm not going to use credit cards. They're the right hand of the devil. And I'm going to shy away from them and stick to cash management and pay for everything with cash. Well, let me tell you what. If you have any notion that you're going to rebuild your credit score, that's a really bad plan. Because in reality, when 2-3 years has elapsed, the negative information that's on your credit report that will stay there for 7 to 10 years, depending on what it is, will be there. And of course, as time elapses, negative information becomes less and less negatively impacting. At least that part is true. However, the people who report to the credit reporting industry, most people don't realize that creditors have to pay to report to the credit industry. They have to pay, which is why so many of them do not report to the credit reporting industry. So if you operate on cash and your notion is 2-3 years later after you've gone through your so-called financial crisis that your credit score is going to be much, much better, well, you're delusional and you have no idea what you're talking about, because possibly you lost your home in a short sale or a foreclosure. You may not have car loans. You may not have credit cards, but you pay your rent on time, you pay your insurance, you pay your utility bills, and after 2-3 years, you haven't missed a single payment. So obviously, in your estimation, your credit will be much, much better. Well, wrong-o, Jackson, because here's the deal. You'll go into some financial institution who will pull your credit, and all of the payments that you've made, remember, rent, insurance, cell phone, utilities, I'm going to ask you a question. Do they report to the credit reporting industry at all? Do they pay the industry to report? Absolutely not. So you will have virtually no payment history whatsoever on your credit report. And although the credit information that was negative has diminished in its negative capacity as it's become older and older, meaning the time has mitigated the negative impact as each month has elapsed and you've moved further away from that, You have virtually no new positive information with which to build a credit profile, and your credit score will probably be no better than it was before. And even if it would have been, here's the deal: you've got no information that is new and recent, and consequently, you may have no scores whatsoever, which, ask any financial person, is as challenging to work with as a person who has low credit scores. So you've accomplished absolutely nothing. So you cannot opt out. And if you do, then the system laughs at you because you simply don't understand how it works. Now, if you understand what I said just a moment ago, that you need 30% of your score is coming from balances owed, that means you need to be using the type of credit that's reporting to the credit reporting agencies or the industry. Well, let me tell you what. For the most part, we're talking about credit cards. And many creditors, you should know, I want to follow that last portion up by telling you that many creditors, remember, a creditor who reports to the Bureau has no obligation to report good payment history and bad payment history. They can choose to report all good or all bad, and they don't need to report negative and then report your corresponding positive payment history. In other words, many creditors will only report if you miss a payment and don't report any good payment. So you miss a payment, let me tell you this, and you can write this down: 1 30-day late. If you are late 30 days and you only have one trade line, not multiple trade lines to offset it, but only one trade line, if you're 30 days late, to overcome the impact of a 30-day late, do you know that you will have to make that payment on time without missing one more payment for the next 3 to 6 years without missing another payment to overcome and offset the negative payment and the implications that relates to as it draws your credit score down? So, my goodness, a negative payment is dramatically more impacting than a positive one, and you'll need to make payments. Well, what if I had a negative payment, it reported to the Bureau as a negative, and the creditor who reported it doesn't report any positive history? Oh my goodness, you understand the impact. So when we come back, we're going to talk more about how we're going to keep, maintain, build, and manipulate that credit score. So hopefully I've already provided you with some interesting insight, and it's only going to get better and more complex as we go here. So stay with me. On the other side of the break, we'll talk about how to manipulate a credit score using credit cards and how this whole system works. Welcome back to Cover Your Assets. I want to encourage you to call into the show. The number, 651-646-8255, 651-646-8255. Also want to encourage you to download. If the information on our show is intriguing to you, you want more information, you want to keep updated on all things financial, and you want inside information that pretty much nobody else has got, I want to encourage you to go to the Financial Crisis Bible. That's www.financialcrisisbible.com and download. It's a free download. Hey, man, you got to give up your email. It just cracks me up that people want free stuff, but they don't want to give away their email. Look, we're going to harvest your email. You betcha. But for that, you're going to get a book that I wrote that is going to tell you a whole lot of stuff. Many of the topics that we cover here on the show is free information. I think you'll find it to be enormously valuable, helpful, and insightful. And so hopefully you find that information valuable for the email that you have to give up, and I'll leave it at that. Also, you can go to our website, CYA21.com, and you'll see the partners that I work with, the people who I feel over the last 28 years that I've been in the financial planning business and have dealt with people in specifically financial crisis. I've learned what makes somebody really good who's a practitioner from somebody who's pretty good. And that way my clients don't have to smile and dial in the phone book to try to figure out who's good from who's great and figure out after 6 months they've been working with the wrong person. I know who's good. I teach these people classes, and I know who the extraordinary people are, and I charge $250 an hour basically for people to get that. So now I've got partners who are on the website, and you're able to get access to some of that information, some of these phenomenal professionals that I have spent my time aligning myself with. So before the break, we were talking about how to manipulate a credit score. It's what we're going to be talking about. But 30% of what makes up your score comes from balances owed, pretty important component, which is to say that if you don't have credit cards or you've never used them, or you stop using the ones that you have, 30% of what makes up a credit score doesn't exist for you. So the point is, if you go through a financial crisis and your answer is to operate on cash, my question to you is this: how in the world do you think you're going to rebuild a credit score when nearly 1/3 of the component that creates it in the first place won't even be calculated in your situation? Installment loans, home loans, car loans. Installment loans are loans that have a finite timeline associated with them, as opposed to revolving accounts where when you pay them down, that credit becomes available to you again. Installment loans, regardless of what anybody else has told you, I don't care what anybody else has told you. I know the people who write code in the scoring models, and I can tell you that revolving trade has more impact and more potential to manipulate a credit score than